Welcome to another Peaceful Solution Carriage Education Program, Moral Excellence in the Workplace class. Last week we started Chapter 3, which is entitled Mine, Yours, and Theirs, Ownership in the Workplace. And we started off by covering how whenever we behave morally in regards to the possessions of property of others, recognizing that everyone's belongings have value. That is whenever we start to make aware of ourselves that everyone has rights of ownership. So we recognize that everyone owns things, they value what they own, and we behave morally, which means that we're respectful in our interactions with others and their belongings. We also went over how it is important that all employees recognize the moral concept of ownership in a workplace by respecting possessions of the company and of the coworkers, always asking permission before you touch a coworker's personal property and accept his or her answer with a positive attitude. And we went over how no is okay. When someone tells you no, it's not because they don't like you, it's because that is their right. It is their right to tell you, yes, you can, or yes, you cannot touch my belongings. And we also went over that recognizing the importance of ownership in the workplace can lead to better interactions with others. And we do our part by being respectful to others whenever, let's say we are to mop something. We show respect to the other person. We respect the right of ownership by dumping the mop water out, washing the mop. If we find a pin, put it back where it goes. And also obtaining belongings. There are 5 ways you can obtain a belonging. You can buy the things that you need and want. You can give them in exchange for work. You can receive them as a gift, and if you have permission to receive that gift, you can inherit it, and you can trade for things. So that's what we went over last week. And this week we're going to pick up right up on page 50, paragraph 5, or procedure 5. Page 50, procedure 5. And it says, inform students that theft is the only one way dishonesty is perpetuated in the workplace. Ask students to predict in what other ways dishonesty regarding belongings is seen in the workplace. Now, just for reference, on page 16 are the negative character traits. And dishonesty or untrustworthy means deceitful or unable to be trusted. Deceitful or unable to be trusted. So this is where you can have a nice discussion with your students about what are some ways that belongings are dishonestly, or people can be dishonest regarding belongings in the workplace. Now, some things that are said here are touching or using someone's personal property or company property without permission, and losing or damaging property and equipment, gossiping and talking bad about others. So I went online and I looked up what are the causes of dishonesty in a workplace. And here are some things that it says. It says dishonesty in a workplace includes employee theft, submitting incorrect timesheets, lying to managers and coworkers, and unethical conduct such as harassment or drug abuse. And when a small business experiences dishonesty in the workplace, it can lead to result in a loss of revenue and a drop in productivity and lower morale. Notice that word, lower morale. In the first chapter, we covered that moral. In order to have a productive workplace, you have to have actions that are moral, which means you're considering, is this going to hurt myself, others, or the environment? How is it going to benefit myself and others? And that was from smallbusiness.com. And there's another article. It is from smallbiztrends.com. And it was entitled 25 Examples of Embezzlement and Workplace Theft. Now, what does the word embezzlement mean? Embezzlement is when a company or someone in a trusted position steals from your business. That embezzlement is when an employee or someone else in a trusted position steals from your business. They use the money or other assets for their own use. And some examples of embezzlement are forging checks, cashing customers' checks, faking vendor payments, so making a payment up and sending it to the vendor, but then you taking that money yourself, overbilling a customer, theft of customer card data. And there was, as I said, there was 25 of them. Another one is using company card for personal use, voiding transactions at a register, and the most common one was stealing merchandise. When you steal that merchandise from, or the inventory from your business, or your workplace. These are ways that dishonesty is shown in a workplace. And as we go on, we'll see that we might think if we do it when no one is looking, it's okay, or they're not going to miss it. But think about that one time you lied when you were younger, and then it could have become a habit where even when you didn't need to lie, you started to lie. So those small habits will become a part of your character, and you'll be lying, you'll be taking things, and it might become so much a part of who you are that you don't even realize that you're doing it at all, because it's just become a habit, just like waking up and brushing your teeth. You just take things, you don't ask, because it's become a part of you. So this is really what we want to bring attention, is that these things are not okay. These might have been concepts that have not been taught to us, like, oh, you can just take it, you don't have to ask. Okay. But asking is a foundation to building those positive interactions. It goes right along with respect. When you show care and concern for another person, you're going to develop those positive, or have those positive interactions. So going on, it says, choose participants to read and discuss the sections entitled Accept Another's Decision and Use of Workplace Items found on pages 54 through 55. Emphasize the importance of being careful with a company property so that it is used with caution and returned to the correct place after being used. So let's go ahead and turn to page 54. Page 54, and it's entitled Accept Another's Decision. Accept another's decision. Now, if the viewers or everyone here, if we keep up with the Peaceful Solution courses, our Partners in Peace were covering last week in the acceptance book about asking. And they kind of made an acronym. And it's the 3 A's. Ask, ask, answer, and accept. And those 3 A's, so I call it the AAA. That's how I'm trying to remember it. So ask, wait for an answer. So ask, answer, and accept. And this is really what we want to keep in mind when we are in situations. We can ask for things, but are we waiting for that answer? And are we accepting that answer? Because, how many times have someone asked you, did you ask someone for that? Oh, I did. What did they say? I don't know, but I asked them. It's that 3-step process that is so important, that you ask, you wait for that answer, and that you accept that answer. So going on, it says on page 54, not being able to accept someone's decision about their belongings is a violation of their rights of ownership and usually results in conflicts and hurt feelings. For example, you ask your coworker to borrow her pen. She says no. You immediately think she is being difficult. As soon as she walks out of the room, you use the pen anyway and return it to her desk without her knowledge. Without understanding the rights of ownership, you might ask, well, what's the harm? I returned the pen. The harm is that she did not give you permission for her pen to be used. When we use another's possession without their permission, we steal their right to make a decision about what they own. And this is really when we start to form a habit. Whenever we start doing things one at a time and then just gets bigger and bigger. Have you ever thought about whenever someone finds something, everyone always looks. Like, I found some money, everyone's like, oh, it could possibly be mine. But whenever there's a mess, we are sure to say who that mess belongs to, right? Take that same mindset. Whenever you see a possession or item, who does this belong to? It's not mine, but but just as eager as you are to say who made that mess and they should clean it up, is as eager as we should be to say, oh, that's not my possession, that's not mine. It might be someone else's. So that's why you take it and put it on a lost and found table. Remember, stolen items are items that you are not aware of whose owners they are or whose owns it. Does not mean it belongs to you. It still belongs to that owner. Here's another example. You bring in a soda and snack to work and put them in the office refrigerator. But when it comes time to enjoy your drink and snack, you find out that someone else beat you to it. Of course, no one would admit to taking them, and you're left angry and snackless. Situations like this occur because people do not respect the rights of ownership and take advantage of others. Now, really think how that would feel, how that does feel when that does occur to you. When, we all have homes, and there are some times where, you buy that one ice cream or you buy that one drink, and you're just like, we're going to put it in the way back so no one can touch it. And then you see someone walking around the house with that, and you're just like, that was mine. And the person's like, well, it's really yummy. And you're just like, but that was mine. Now, take that into account. You can have your name on it, you can have everything. But unless that person opening that fridge sees that possessions, recognizes that's not mine, I don't touch that, unless I have that person's permission, that wall of trust will always be broken because we're not recognizing that this belonging is valuable to somebody else. This belonging deserves, this person that owns this belonging deserves to be treated with that respect. There was an example that someone shared with me one time where there was a producer of a late night show, and he was expressing the theft that was going on in society today. And he was asking people, what are some of the things that you've done? And someone said, well, I stole a car one time, but I returned it back. And they're like, well, it's not that bad. You returned the car, so there's no problem. And then there was a person in the audience who's like, well, I wouldn't like that to occur to me. And they're like, but you returned the car. What's the harm? And then the host started to joke about, well, next week we're going to go to your house and we're going to go rob your car and then we'll return it back. And as this was being told to me, I was just like, this is why society thinks it's okay. Because it's something that's joked about. It's something that's made to be funny. When really, all that was being said was, I'm not respecting your rights of ownership. I do not care about your possessions or your feelings or your thoughts. Because what he did was just broke down all of those things. And, think about stealing is not okay. But it's made to seem as a normal thing that people at certain ages do. It's just a normal thing. But it shouldn't be normal. And this is what the peaceful solution is doing, is we're making that aware, making everyone aware that asking is an important thing. There's a saying that rules are meant to be broken, but rules are what keep you safe. Rules are what really hold us all to a standard. And the peaceful solution is making that standard well known. You're told to put your seatbelt on. You're told to pay for your your produce or your groceries at the store, because this is how people make money. This is the rules. But when we break those rules, it affects everyone. No one lives in safety anymore. People are in fear of their job. People are wondering, what's going to occur next. But when we accept the decisions people have concerning their belongings, and sometimes that's just whenever you're told something, just accept it. It seems to be that sometimes, and it can be because we're all different people. Raise your hand if you're a confrontational person. And raise your hand if you're not a confrontational person. See, some people are confrontational, like you have to make their point known, and they won't leave that place until your point is made. But when you step back, you're like, is this necessary? Am I actually creating conflict, or is it simple if I just accept the answer? Because that is actually what is showing respect. When you would just accept that answer. Ownership goes both ways. Just as we want others to respect our property and to ask before touching or taking anything, however big or small, we must offer the same care and concern to others. So this goes both ways. We can behave morally in regards to ownership by asking permission before touching or using someone's belongings. But asking alone is not enough. And I underline that. It's not enough. We must also accept the response even if it is no. Authorities over one's possession means you have the right to decide who uses your possession, when they are used, and how they are used. This is the rights of ownership. You own a possession, someone asks you, can I use your possession? You, as the owner, have a right to say you can use it, how you can use it, and for when they can use it. So those, I numbered them. So 1 is who uses your possession, 2, when they are used, and 3, how they are used. In the previous chapter, we learned about self-control and how practicing self-control will enable you to stop and consider the rights of ownership and then choose to respect those rights by asking and then accepting the decision of the owner. And remember that, in the workplace, there's going to be many opportunities for you to exercise your right of ownership to your belongings. But just as you want someone to respect your right of ownership, accept your answer, we also have to accept the decisions and keep in mind the rules regarding the possessions of the company. Because think about if everyone took a pen from the office. Every day, everyone took a pen. Do you think there would be a pen in the office? No. And as we go on to the next page, we're going to learn how whenever you take things from your workplace, whenever you take advantage of the workplace, you're actually hindering the growth of your workplace. You're hindering the growth of, the people around you. Whenever we don't accept the decisions, we don't accept the rules. And it is common to lose self-control because we are told no. It is common and it is okay to become upset whenever someone takes something that is not ours. It's normal. It's our emotions. But what is important is to recognize that this is the decision, calm ourselves down, and realize that I just need to accept it. What we are not to accept is that our behavior of taking things from others, taking advantage of others, taking things whenever we want it, that is not what we are to accept. We are to accept, people's decisions concerning their belongings, but we are not to accept when people disrespect us. And that doesn't mean we have a confrontation with them. That means, you can remind them, hey, did you ask for that? No, can you please ask before you touch my belongings? And if that person continues to do that, then you can go to the supervisor. You can go to the supervisor and make it known about what is going on. So on page 55, we're talking about the use of workplace items. Now I want you to think of, there will be times when we might be teaching various workplaces, but think about, various workplaces. We can think of our workplaces. Like some people work in an office, some people work at a bakery. But when it gets to things like firefighters or paramedics or, teachers, people who are real estate agents, think about their workplaces as well. There's tons of workplaces in society today. And what would occur if if they don't properly use the items in their workplace? We're going to go, as we get into this page, we're going to talk about it. It says another common problem is when employees steal from the very company they work for. Theft in the workplace costs billions of dollars yearly. And an average company loses 5% of annual revenue to fraud, which means 5% of their income is lost because of fraud. It is an enormous problem that is actually causing companies to go bankrupt. Do you know that 1/3 of the U.S. corporate bankruptcy are directly caused by employee theft? This clearly shows a lack of respect for the belongings of others, with little or no value placed on the consequences to the coworkers and the company. There was a woman who worked at a laundromat, and she actually stole, at her time working at a laundromat, she stole $14,000 worth of quarters. Now just imagine $14,000 worth of quarters. Like, that's just a lot. But the interesting thing is that only after she quit did the owner of the laundromat notice that something was wrong. Because he noticed that after she quit her job, the income was just going higher and higher and higher. And he's like, what has changed? And after he did an investigation, he realized that she is what changed. She was continuing to steal and steal. And if it wasn't for that investigation that went on, or her, resigning, imagine how much money he would have lost if she continued to work for that laundromat. But notice that last line on that first paragraph that says, this clearly shows a lack for someone's belongings and little or to no value placed on the consequences to the coworkers of the company. If we've ever known anyone who owns a company, or like personally, we can be employees, but if you do know someone who like owns a company and you understand certain things, it is well known how you really do entrust the people under you. CEOs, they have everyone under them who they trust is going to do their job. And when one thing goes wrong, someone, embezzles money or forges checks or people don't get paid, those losses add up over time where they're not able to pay their vendors. They're not able to pay their employees. They have to cut people from working there, which then hinders, their outgo or their reputation of their business. So whenever we are doing something, we really want to emphasize to, the teachers that it's not just about us. This item, this possession, really is affecting our reputation and the reputation of the company. Because, people do go out. There are some businesses that actually have to work in-house. And, there was reports where plumbers or people who were painters, they were stealing jewelry from the people's houses. Now, what reputation do you think that business has now? Nobody wants to hire them anymore. And now that business went into bankruptcy, has to cut their losses, and now has to go search for a way to make a living. So our choices, they are not a lot of times thought about, but they are actually what create our present and are going to also affect our future. For example, restaurants across our nation routinely have food items stolen. Department stores have various items stolen out of delivery truck, and stacks of papers, markers, pencils, and other items are stolen from offices worldwide. And today there are cameras put in. There are logins, login books put in offices just to be able to try to trust the people that are there. Think about a paramedic. If someone was having a reaction and she needed an EpiPen, and it wasn't in the ambulance because someone had stolen it or because her partner had stolen it, how do you think that would affect the people, that person, the community? So this really ripples out whenever we do not see value in things. Whenever it's just another day, it's just another pen, it's that same old person, those actions start to really affect and become a part of who we are. It says illegal use of equipment, materials, or supplies in any other form of stealing. Any item reserved for the use of authorized personnel should only be used for those designated to do so. There was a documentary I used to watch a while ago, but it still sticks with me, and it was entitled Rotten. And what it went through is the allergic reactions that people have. And there was a business owner who talked about how there are people who are allergic to peanut oil. So he tries not to use peanut oil. But there are people who are the restaurant owners who continue to use peanut oil, and people have reactions, and they end up dying, which means that the restaurant gets sued. And some of them have actually went out of business. Some people have went to jail because people just don't want to use the proper oil. Now, if anyone here or anyone knows someone who has a reaction to something, cannot eat something, cannot drink something, is intolerant to something, you know that whenever things are not done how they're supposed to, it causes a lot of pain. It's not just about the money, it causes a lot of pain, which then also affects the reputation of that business because, first, the person that's not responsible, they lose their job, which then how does that affect their business or their family? And it just ripples out where that business will just probably have to close. But it goes to really just not thinking about how is this going to take an extra 5 minutes? Is this going to take an extra 5 minutes? Is this something I want to do or something I don't want to do? Is it what's required? Is it what is right? This is what we should be thinking. Is this what is right? Additionally, using business items for personal use is dishonest. All workers must adhere to these rules in order to respect their rights of ownership. Another way in which we disrespect the rights of ownership is by being careless with property belongings to our employer. When we use tools and other property belongings to our employer for the purpose of doing our job, we must be careful with them as we are with our own. Respecting the rights of ownership includes taking care of and using possessions as instructed to avoid damaging or breaking them even if they do not belong to us. Now, because tools are so expensive and because of people's lack of respect and not recognizing the value of these possessions, there are some companies who actually require their employees to buy the tools they need for their job because the company cannot afford to buy these items for the job. But think about it, how much do we focus on our work, or are we focused on other things? If you think about that one conversation that can wait till we're done with this project, that one text that can wait until we have finished what we're supposed to do. Adjusting our focus really changes our work ethic. The value we place in our job will change our work ethic. The way that we view our employers, our supervisors, are going to change our work ethic. And this is because we are starting to see the value in everything. It's not just an everyday thing we show up to. It's something that we value. It's a job that we value. And we value the possessions that we use. Going on, it says, tools left laying around or misused and equipment not properly maintained are only some of the ways employees are careless with property. Carelessness and negligence result in financial loss and waste of time. Think about the employee who has to look for his tools and other supplies before he can start his workday, or the employee who damages equipment because he did not use it properly. And like I said, sometimes it's about taking that extra time to put something away properly. I can remember back in the responsibility book, we talk about putting things where they're supposed to go. And this starts when, you take something off the shelf, you put it back. If you're someone who is you're like, where do I put everything? Take that set a day aside so you can organize things. So you're not wasting time, okay? My pens go here, my pencils go here. It's just taking that time to make the work area efficient. Making your work area efficient. And that starts with seeing the value. Because if you personally pay for something, are you more careful with it? Some people might be. Some people might not be. But I want you to remember that how you take care of your possessions will reflect in how you take care of someone else's possessions. So I just want you to keep that in mind, and I'm going to turn it over to the next teacher.
Great evening, everyone. Welcome to another class. We're still in chapter 3, so I'm going to continue where Tori just left off, but please give her another hand. Last night we were studying and preparing, and like we could talk for hours. I think that's why we get along so well. So we were on page 55, and she covered accepting another's decision. Now, the first thing that I wanted to touch on was the fact that sometimes we seem to be, in any company, there seems to be management and then us, you know. And that's one thing that I really would like all of us, because when we're training in the Peaceful Solution, we want people to understand that they are management. You know, if you're not a supervisor, you're just an employee, you have somebody supervising you. Supervisors also have supervisors supervising them. So we all answer to somebody, and the purpose of our company, whoever we work for, is the same. And if anything, supervisors just have a greater responsibility, okay? Because I always say, like, if I mess up, my supervisor is going to correct me, but she's already had to have answered for my mistake. Okay, I've been there many times where, you know, as a supervisor myself, you know, if one of my employees doesn't do what I asked them to do, and I get a call from my supervisor, well, I'm not going to say, well, but I told her how to do it. You know, I don't know why she didn't do it. You're just saying, okay, yes, sir, and you go fix it. So as supervisors, they hold a great responsibility, and we have to be mindful of that. And it should never be in our mind that it's us against them, you know. Our supervisors are like our guardians, because they're making sure that we do everything right so that all of us can accomplish the one goal that our company has, and that is to serve and produce. Okay, so I'm going to, on that page 55, one note that we would like for all of you to make when you're teaching this is you have to remind people to be very careful with company property. And, you know, if it is used with caution, then it'll serve its purpose and everyone will benefit from it. I was working in a school, it's a very small school, and I was in line to make copies. And the previous teacher kept messing up she couldn't find the way to run the copy, so she wasted about 25 pages. And so then finally, she said, well, it's not my money anyway. You know, she just made the comment, and she put the damaged sheets to the side. And, you know, have you ever heard some people say, how she acts like she's paying me out of her pocket, or like she's the one paying me. Well, you know, sometimes we have that mindset, but that's not the mindset we should have. Our supervisors should trust that everything that's entrusted to us, we're taking care of it like if it was ours. That's really how all of us should see that, because we have to remember one thing. In the Peaceful Solution, we learn respect is given, right? I don't have to earn your respect. You don't have to earn mine. But what about trust? What does the Peaceful Solution say about trust? Trust is earned. Trust is earned. So that means that the people that are supervising us have seen in us that we can be trusted, that we're accountable, that we're responsible. And of course, we're all learning, right? We're learning. And when we're training people in the Peaceful Solution, one of the things, like, if anything, our supervisors have great responsibility because it's their job to train us in company policies, rules, regulations, anything that has to do with a company. Our supervisors are looking over us to make sure we're complying. Okay? So we have to remember that. It should never be, in our mind, it should not be us against them, them against us. That's not the way it should ever be. Okay, and I cannot reinforce that enough. Okay, so we go to page 50, and we're going to read procedure 6. It says, we have an activity. on page 56. So when you read the procedure, it says, stop and think. Allow participants to complete the activity found on page 56. And so it asks us to ask for volunteers, okay? And like I said, when you're in your setting teaching this program, you have to become aware of what you're teaching, what does the company do, so that you can have scenarios that fit them. So we encourage, at that point, you would encourage your students, we're going to go over the activity on page 56, and depending on how much time you have, that's how you would do it. You could either assign it for homework too, but you want to go over the questions, because you want them to think about this. So you're going to encourage your students, please take notes. And then you can go over them and you can give your examples. Okay, so it says, at the top of page 56, name a few of your personal belongings that you keep at your job. Example says coffee mug. So I work in an office, so I take my own pens and my own notebooks. The company that I work for does provide that for me. However, because I have another job and my supervisor is aware that I, take calls for another office at times, so I don't want to steal from that office to serve that other office so I take my things. Some of my things I take with me. So that's an example. Now, one time I was teaching this, and they said, so like if you write with a pen that company gave you, you're stealing? And I said, well, the office is providing those items so that I can serve that office. And I said, so if I have another job and I take another call, why would I use a pen that employer provided for me to serve that other company? You see? So we have to be very mindful. And Tori said something very important, and I really cannot say it enough either. Ask. Ask, ask, ask. And the worst answer you could be given is what? No. And no is? Okay. We shouldn't get hurt feelings because we get told no. We need to learn to accept that, and instead of us getting upset, like, why did I get told no? We're trying to understand, because we're training to be supervisors. All of us, wherever we work, it should not matter what we do. Our goal should be, one day I want to be a supervisor. I want to know this company so well that I'm entrusted to guide others. Okay? And I am going to touch a lot on that. Okay? So I really want you to start having that mindset that your supervisors, our supervisors, they are our guardians at work. They are truly looking over our interests, our benefits, our well-being, and that of the companies. They are. Okay, so in our mind, we should not, like I said, we should not be like it's me against them or them against me. Okay, so what rules do you have regarding your belongings? So in my office, I tell them, anybody can use them, because I just have them there because I don't want to steal, right? So anybody can use them. Now, I do have some notebooks. Those have my name because I have personal and confidential information in there. So that one, they see it. It's closed. They know that if they need anything from there, they would need to ask me. So those are things that don't assume that your coworkers know. Don't assume. As supervisors, we cannot assume that our employees know. Okay, there was a meeting one time at a middle school, and there were 21 math teachers, so it got pretty loud at times, and our department chair, she was really great. And so she's asking, and I'm going to cover this for one reason, and you'll see how that ties into this. So she, every year, at the beginning of the school year, as teachers, we're told to highlight our bubble kids, our bubble students, that's what they're called. And what that is, based on the previous year's tests, scores, you say, okay, these are my top ones, these are my middle ones, which are your bubble students, and these are the lower ones. Now, in writing, you are told that we do that so that we can group students. You want one high achiever, one lower, and two of your bubble children in that group. And it's a technique. And if you do it, it should work very effectively. However, I'm going to tell you, not in writing, very unofficially, I'm going to tell you what they use those scores for. So my second year in that middle school, my team leader says, did you already do your bubble students? I said, yes. And she said, okay, so she said, on Tuesday we're having parents' night, so we're meeting after the parents leave. And I said, okay, it's 6 teachers on that team. So when the parents left, we're left in the room, and she says, so everybody has their lists? And it's like, yes. So we all pull them out, and she's going over them. And so she says, okay, so I have this list, and she shows us, and she says, so we have about 15 students. We're going to go telling them, the first thing, of course, you lead by example. If you expect your employees to be honest, well, of course, they've got to see you be honest, And it's true because when I see my supervisors and when they give an instruction, and then I observe them throughout the day, but they're doing the exact same thing that they have asked us to do. Like if they say, I need to know like all of these, then I hear them reporting every one of that to their supervisors. So they're leading by example. And so as supervisors, we have to remember that. And that's not always easy when you're confronted with attitude sometimes, right? But remember, we're learning how to guide our employees to want to lead. And I'm gonna see if you can put, you're gonna have to skip. I'm sorry, I realized I put it out of order. But the second slide does say there is a tendency to respond, and I did cover this one last time, with anger to disguise the fact that our feelings are hurt. So, like I told you, many years ago, the saying in college was, when a person gets called out, they'd rather have you think that they're disrespectful than they are like unintelligent or that they don't know. They don't want people to realize that they don't know things. They'd rather say, well, she was disrespectful. And it's a mechanism. So as, we're learning that mechanism is unacceptable. I should be able to say to my supervisor, to a coworker, can I talk to you? I didn't appreciate the way I was talked to. Or I felt disrespected. And that should be able to be said without confrontation and without disrespect. Now, there's 2 words, simple and easy. It's very simple. We need to learn to be humble. That's the bottom line for everyone. Supervisors, employees, we need to learn to be humble. We have to. What is wrong with me telling you I'm sorry, even if I believe that I did nothing wrong? Why can't I say I'm sorry? What's stopping me from saying I'm sorry? See, those are we need to analyze that. Why is it so hard for me to say I'm very sorry? I mean, I go into my supervisor's office like 15 times, probably 20, and I'm like, I think I messed up. What did you do? Well, I did this. Oh, no, that's fine. And sometimes I did mess up. And she guides me, and she corrects me, and she tells me what I need to do to fix it. Because one thing that Tori said, we have to realize one thing. Whatever I do does not just affect me. And if we think that our attitude cannot be seen, I've said it before, and these are things that you have to share with your class as a teacher when you're pointing these things out, because you need them to make that connection. You need them to realize that in order for me to be productive, I've got to have a positive mindset. I have to be willing to recognize that I will make mistakes, that I am being trained, that I don't know everything yet, and that when I mess up, I just need to be willing to fix it. Okay, how do I fix it? Can you show me how to fix it? If I get called, now, I know sometimes we might have a problem if correction might not be done the best way. But here's the thoughts. Remember that you cannot control anyone else, right? Because that's what we're telling everyone. Supervisors, you cannot control your employees. Employees, you cannot control your supervisors. The only person you can control is you. So if I'm being disrespected, so if I disrespect back, then that's going to solve our problems, right? Of course not. We're making them worse. So we have to realize that, and like I said, what is it? Only each one of us can analyze and say, why is it so difficult for me to say sorry to my supervisor or to a coworker? Why do I find it so difficult to say, please forgive me, I didn't mean to. We should be, when we're training the peaceful solution, you tell them, and I said, there should be so much care and concern for one another that if you see one of your coworkers is hurting, you get up and he's like, can I help you? Oh, don't carry that. I'll get it for you. I mean, that's the level of care and concern that, the peaceful solution is trying to train, because that's not what society is training us in right now. The peaceful solution is making it very clear that's what we're training. That's what we're training everyone to know. That like Tori said last week, I spend 8 hours, 9 hours with my family at work. Sometimes I see my family at home an hour or two before, everyone has to go to bed. But my coworkers, they're with me 9 hours. Now, let's think of that mentality, because when we're teaching this, when I tell them, sometimes I ask this question, I say, would you feel comfortable going to your supervisor and say, why did you do this? Like, why did you give me that? And start raising your voice and get all, and people will say, well, no. And I said, why? Why do you think that would be something that you wouldn't want to do? It's like, I'd probably not have a job after that. And I said, true. I said, now how comfortable do we go home and start yelling at our children? Or start yelling at our husband? So, like, it's, we have to realize that we have to be, the peaceful solution is a way of life. That's what we're training people. This is a way of life. This is not how you conduct yourself only at work and then at home you're somebody else, or the other way around. You learn to accept in you what needs to change so that you can make better choices. So on page 56, we're still answering the questions. I remember, one of the techniques that I had told you last time, I said, read the whole lesson plan. When you're preparing for a lesson, just go through the whole lesson plan, because you want to understand what points are you going to tell your students or give your students. Can we go over the principles of teaching? Okay, I want you to recognize all these points when you're teaching, okay? These are the principles that when you teach, this is the whole reason you're doing this, okay? It says there are a set of principles that can make teaching both more effective and efficient. And then I put the definitions of effective. To be effective means that you're successful in producing a desired or intended result. That means that whatever you're setting out to do, whatever you want to accomplish, you're doing it. Okay, that's being effective. Efficient is working in a well-organized and competent way. Okay, we should not be wasting time, especially not our company's time. Okay, now, depending on the different areas, people work in different areas, so it requires different things that people do. But you always have to remember, there's always, while I'm at work, I need to be working. I need to be working. I need to, if I'm done with today's assignments, what can I do to get ready for tomorrow? We always have to be thinking that way. And that's the only way to be effective and efficient. Okay, and that's from Oxford Languages, so the definitions from there. The principles of teaching are coming from eduboard.com. Another principle, it says, it includes encouraging interaction, discussion, and collaboration. That's something that as a teacher, doesn't matter what you're teaching, whether you're teaching a math class or the peaceful solution, that's what you want to do. You want to encourage communication, interaction, discussion, and collaboration. No one should feel I'm the only one that can do this. I'm the only one that can do this job. Like, the office would have to close down if I'm not here. No one should feel that way. And no one should allow another coworker to carry that amount of responsibility. It's like, how can I help you? And of course, always asking first. Because the supervisor is who we ask. Can I assist her with that? Because I'm already finished with this that you gave me. Can I help her with that? Ask. Asking is let me tell you how society does not train us to ask. Society says, you should have initiative. So it should come from you. So then you think, okay, so, I have some time here. Let me go do that over there. Well, yes, I mean, that's showing initiative, but before you head over there to help, who should you ask? Who should we ask? Our supervisor. Our supervisor. Ma'am, I'm already finished with this, and I wanted to go take care of that. She might say immediately, oh, yes, go ahead. Or she might say, well, can you do this first? This is more urgent. I need you to do this. That asking, that's how you develop that trust with your supervisors, with those that are guiding you, okay? On the bottom of, so you have those questions, you want to go over them with your students, you want to give them examples and acceptable answers. On that page, true positive character development begins with controlling our thoughts, which leads to, of course, our emotions, which leads to moral actions, and then positive results. Sorry. Okay, so the next slide, we have another few points. Another principles, in other words, this is what our goal is when we're teaching. Of course, it's to teach the peaceful solution. But remember what I told you last time. Us having knowledge, we can memorize. We can memorize a lot of things. We can memorize definitions. Memorization is great. We need to. I mean, if we can memorize things, it's awesome. But more importantly is to make connections. Because when we make the connection, that's the only way that we can then transfer the information, that we can then teach the information. If we're just memorizing something, then when someone asks us a question, but what if this? We're lost. Like, oh, I don't know. Because we don't have a true understanding of the concept. We might know a definition, but that's why I want you to understand the reason that I'm covering this with you is hopefully techniques that we're trained with as teachers that can help you be a more effective and a more efficient teacher. So another important principle is respecting that learners and trainees have different learning styles. We all learn in different ways. Okay, one thing that I noticed that in school, when you're in school, they don't really teach you that. I learned about my learning style when I was in college. That's really when they start teaching. I'm like, well, by this time, I already try to figure it out. And if I didn't figure it out, I've been flunking out of school, out of classes. So it's really important that you try to train, let people know we all learn in different ways. And you know what? The responsibility of us teachers is to learn what way my students learn so I can teach them to the way they can learn. That's our job. And really, in a work area, in a workplace, supervisors, that's your job. You have to learn, how do my employees learn so I can guide and direct more effectively? It says, create the conditions and climate that supports learning. I'm going to repeat that. Create the conditions and climate that supports learning. That means that there's constantly respectful interactions. When correction is made respectfully. When correction is made, it's accepted respectfully. You should not be afraid to mess up in your job. And what I mean by that is that we shouldn't she's going to start yelling at me. He's going to start yelling at me. Or he's going to humiliate me, or he's going to put me down, or he's going to say, oh, what are you? Why are you so dumb? None of those are fears that people truly have when people do not know how to supervise in a moral way, okay? However, I'm going to repeat one thing that I will repeat all the time. As employees, nothing our supervisor does justifies our disrespect and our disobedience. I'm going to repeat that. Nothing the supervisors do justifies my disrespect or my disobedience. And every opportunity I have, I'm going to say it. Disrespect is visible. I don't have to say a word to show disrespect. Okay? And I should have enough care and concern for my supervisors and my coworkers to not ever be disrespectful or disobedient. Okay? And in the peaceful solution, that climate and those conditions for learning, it's called our environment. Okay? In the peaceful solution, that's what we call it. There's 3 major ways of learning, and I'm going to finish with that. The 3 major ways of learning is visual or spatial. A visual or spatial learner learns best when they have an image or a cue to help them process the information. About 90% of the world's population are visual learners. They tend to be excellent readers. Auditory learners, that's the smallest of them all. It's about 10% of the world's population, and they learn best through listening. So they are excellent readers, and even when they're reading to themselves, they're reading out loud because they need to hear themselves say the information. And the last one, kinesthetic and tactile. Those learn best by doing. There's a very large combination that are both visual and kinesthetic or tactile. So you have to be willing to teach how your employees learn when you're guiding and training them. And I really want to leave you with an encouraging, some encouraging quotes. On the next slide, it says, listening is the key to understanding. That's in the Moral Excellence, page 151. Successful managers, they have a serving attitude, and they build a serving mentality for others, and they build reputation, and they create a positive work ethic that benefits all involved. That's the Moral Excellence in the Workplace, page 159. And I'm going to put an important notice there. That one's just like mine. Please remember that an attitude of servitude is very different than servitude with an attitude. Sometimes people think, well, I served you. I did what you asked me to. But if we did it with that attitude, we kind of took away already from the serving part. Okay? Now, Nelson Mandela said, it always seems impossible until it is done. He was a very peaceful leader, the president of South Africa. And leadership is the art of getting someone else to do something that you want done because he or she wants to do it. Those are the leaders that I have right now. Like, I know what they want me to do, and I do it because I want to do it. Because I'm being led by example, and it's very enjoyable when you see satisfied people, when we finally are able to serve and get things done. I thank you very much for being with us this week. Have an excellent, peaceful week. We'll see you next week.